Now let's have a look now at some of the rising case numbers we're seeing across the continent, starting in France. Some 220,000 cases have been confirmed in the country, and 54% more infections have been recorded this week compared to last week. Spain is rapidly approaching 300,000 cases and 30,000 deaths. Yesterday, the country saw its largest daily increase in cases since lockdown was dialed back in late June. And the UK is still the hardest hit country in Europe, with more than 300,000 cases and nearly 50,000 deaths. There are an estimated close to 5,000 new infections every day, and that's forced British Prime Minister Boris Johnson to put lockdown easing on hold.
With those numbers creeping up, our assessment is that we should now squeeze that brake pedal in order to keep the virus under control. On Saturday, the 1st of August, you'll remember we had hoped to reopen in England a number of the higher risk settings that had remained closed. And today, I'm afraid we're postponing those changes for at least a fortnight.
Well, let's hear now from our political editor, Darren McCaffrey, who's in London with more on these new measures.
Well, there are essentially two things at play here. First of all is that pausing of the unlocking for England, with the British Prime Minister Boris Johnson saying that things that were due to reopen tomorrow, such as casinos, bingo halls, bowling alleys and theatres, well, they'll have to be put on hold for at least 2 weeks, and that also there will remain to be restrictions on the size of weddings, and that face masks, face coverings, will have to be worn inside in places like museums and in cinemas too. That is separate to what has happened in the northwest of England, where we've seen quite a sharp rise in the number of cases there, particularly in the Manchester area. And there have been further restrictions put in place in terms of the number of people that you can socialise with, and indeed the travel limitations on people being able to leave that region, because there has been this dramatic increase. And this is all part of a wider concern about rising infections across England. We heard today that it is likely that infections are rising, that the R rate may well now be above 1. And we heard from the Chief Medical Officer here in England suggesting that this may be the limits of how much England can unlock, and that in future there may have to be the certain limiting of freedoms to try and get the infection rate under control. It is a reminder of almost this kind of whack-a-mole strategy that certain countries are having to follow to try and control infection rates, where we're seeing these kind of mini lockdowns in different parts of the country, and that very much that unlocking strategy, the deconfinement strategy in large parts of Europe, is now coming to a stop or being put on pause because we are seeing individual spikes in clusters in different parts of the continent.